All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 144. And this week, it's back to just me being solo. But I am turning the camera on this week. I went a long time and not using it. Because the camera that I have is fine when we do like the normal, multiple cameras going. But when it's like this, I don't know. I just didn't like how it looked. I still need to buy just a better camera and get that going. But we'll rock it for right now. This week, I watched Hatching from 2022. Which we were supposed to watch last week, but then we ended up doing Knock at the Cabin because, and boy, what an episode that turned into. We had fucking, it was like an old throwback episode. Everyone was there. Maverick made a run in via his truck in Portland or wherever he was. But yeah, so I watched Hatching this week, and yeah, didn't like it. Didn't like it very much. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Yeah, I didn't like it at all, really. It's only like an hour 26 or something, but boy, did it feel longer. Like I checked how much time there was left, like 3 separate occasions during the movie. And each time there was still, like, the first time it was like 35 minutes, then it was like 48 minutes or something. But yeah, I didn't like it. Um, the acting is good in it, but story wise, I just didn't get into the whole story. And funny enough, I saw a lot of people praising the effects of the bird lady in this movie. But the bird looks like shit when it's when it's out, and she's interacting with it or whatever. Um, yeah, I didn't think the bird looked good. Everyone was talking about how good the bird looked, but I was like, I don't see what y'all are seeing. Um, anyway, so hey, spoiler warning for Hatching. If you've never seen it, I'm gonna ruin everything about it. So you've been warned. The movie starts off with our main characters, which is this family who the mom has like a video vlog, but she calls it a blog the whole movie. And I was like, it's not a blog, it's a vlog, it's a video, it's a video blog. But yeah, and she keeps calling it a blog, and it bothered me. Um, but they're like a everyday life YouTube. What was that super famous one? Who it was like every day they had a vlog showing like their life or whatever, and it ended up being like he cheated on his wife and shit, and like he lost everything. But that's basically what they're doing here. They do like this everyday life thing. They act like they have this perfect life. Um, there's this really weird shot where they're on the couch and they're saying bye or whatever, and the dad is sitting with the son and the mom is sitting with the daughter, and they're both like identical. It's like split down the middle. Like the dad looks exactly like the son, the mom looks exactly like the daughter. um yeah, and it was just, okay, there wasn't any difference in it. Like yeah. um Also, I said that whole thing about that guy cheating on his wife and ruining everything, and then I remembered kind of how this movie goes, and I was like, oh yeah, that kind of kind of fits in here too. Um, they say goodbye to their audience, and then a fucking bird flies in and starts wrecking shit in their house and breaking fucking vases and pictures and shit. And everyone's freaking out till eventually the daughter goes over and takes a blanket and throws it over the bird and catches it. And then the mom is like, "Oh, give it to me." So she gives it to the mom, and the mom just fucking snaps its neck. And the daughter's like, "What the fuck, mom? I didn't tell you to do that." And mom's like, "Oh, it's better. This is nature or whatever." And so then she tells the daughter to go throw it out into the organic waste, which I guess they have a trash can specifically for like foods or oranges and all this shit. Because she opens it up and it's like filled to the brim and full of maggots, like it's organically decaying over time. So she tosses the bird on top, and when she walks away, we see the bird twitch, and I was like, "Oh shit, he's fucking coming back for revenge, bitch." But no, that didn't really happen. What happens is fucking. Oh, also that night, before all this kicks off, the son has to have like lullabies sing to him by the sister and the mom. And this kid is like fucking 12 or 13. Well, maybe not 13, and maybe not 12. He might be like 10 or 11. But he's way older. If you go and watch him, he's way older than lullaby age. But, you know, he's still having lullabies sung to his ass. So that night when the daughter is in her own bed, she hears the bird that they snapped its neck like squawking outside and shit, and she's like, what the fuck? So she goes outside and she opens the trash can and the bird's gone. So she follows the squawking all the way into the forest that they just live around, and eventually she finds the bird. Like, it had gone out and it's on the ground now. It's still fucked up, but it's still alive and it's gone. It's gotten here somehow, you know. And so she's like, oh shit, you know. And she's trying to help him. She's like leaning down to like try to pick him up and but the bird's like fucked up, and every time like she touches it, it's like squawking in pain and shit. So eventually she has no choice but to grab a rock and put it out of its misery. Now that's the key there, putting it out of its misery, because she fucking decides to start just hitting it in the body. And she whacks it a good 12, 15 times. And each time the bird is like, like just squawking even more. Like, she just fucks him up. Even eventually he does die. Like, eventually he's just a fucking mess and he's not alive anymore. But before that, she's just beating the shit out of this bird, who's like, this isn't helping. This is worse, you know? So she kills the bird. And then, real sad here, guys, she looks over, and next to her is a nest with an egg in it. So that's why the bird had made it back to its nest to try to take care of its egg. And I was like, oh shit, that's some hard shit right there. So the daughter feels guilty about what happened to the bird. So she takes the egg and goes back home and puts it underneath her pillow. The next day, we watched the daughter at, I'm blanking out on the name of the actual sport, but it's like gymnastics or what. It's the Olympics with the poles, and they jump up and they swing between the two poles, you know, pole dancing. No, that's strip. No, that'd be a very different movie if this 13-year-old girl was pole dancing. But yeah, it's that sport, whatever the fuck it's called, you know? So she's practicing this routine, and she keeps fucking up on the landing. She can't stick the landing. She's like falling over and shit. And the trainer lady is like, oh, you know, we only have like one more spot for the competition. I don't know if you're going to make it. And the girl's like, no, I can do it. I can be better and shit. And the trainer's like, okay, you know. And the girl tries to like start again, but the trainer's like, no, that's enough for today. Don't push yourself too hard. You know, come back another day. So she goes in the locker room and she's like cleaning up and shit. And these girls ask her if she wants to go swimming with them. And she says no. And it was like the one main girl asked her, and the other two girls are like, why the fuck would you ask that freak anyway? You knew she was going to say no or whatever. So we see that she's like very secluded from, you know, other girls in her school. Mainly because like, and it's her mom like pushing it on her. Like, her main focus is practicing for this fucking competition and shit. She gets home, and she just walks in on her mom making out with this handyman named, like, Turo or something. Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, if you're planning on watching this movie, it's a Finnish movie. So everyone's speaking the Finnish, I guess, is the language over there. So it's, you know, It's subtitles and stuff. And everyone has these super like Finnish names and shit. Like the daughter's name is Tinja, and this dude's name is like Turo, and the son's name is like Majida or something like that. Well, that sounds like a Japanese name, but either way, they all have these weird fucking Finland names. Get some American names, assholes. So she gets home and sees her mom making out with this handyman, and I was like, oh damn, we got some fucking affairs going on in this movie. And so the mom like takes her aside, and she's doing the whole, grown-ups have special friends and stuff, and the daughter's like, well, what about dad? And the mom's like, well, you know how dad is. And basically, dad is like a no confidence, no self-esteem cuck throughout this whole movie. Like, you keep wondering if he knows what's going on, and then eventually it's like very clear he knows what's happening, but he doesn't have like the balls to stand up for himself. So yeah, she tells the mom or the daughter to keep this a secret between them. And the daughter is like, okay, that's fine, and she smiles. But then as the mom leaves, like her face goes blank. After the mom leaves, she goes under her pillow and takes out the egg. And this thing's, and she puts it up to her ear. And we hear a fucking heartbeat going on inside. The mom then takes a business trip, which is just keyword for I'm going to go get dicked down by this dude for a week. And she leaves. Doesn't really play a point in the story because she goes, I'm going to take a business trip. I'm going to leave. Next scene, hey, I'm back from the business trip. That's it, So, we go back to the egg, and now this thing's like a fucking ostrich egg. Like, it's blown up from its little, raven egg size, and now it's like a full ostrich egg. The daughter can't keep it under her pillow because it's a fucking, it's a football at this point. So she carves a hole into the chest of this giant teddy bear she has, and she puts it in the teddy bear to stay there. After that, we go back to the gymnastics training place. And she's practicing. This time the mom is there watching her too. And she's practicing this routine, and it's clear like she's gotten better, but she still isn't nailing it. And in walks this girl who had just moved in next door. There was a scene earlier where she's outside, the daughter's outside, and she sees this girl move in next door, and they introduce each other. And the girl has like this French bulldog, and she's like, oh, you can pet him. And when she tries to pet the bulldog, it like tries to bite her and shit. But that's the only scene they had shared up to that point. Now she's here, and the two girls are like, oh man, this is great. You're fucking, we can hang out here and do all this shit and stuff. And the woman's like, yeah, cool. And so then the friend gets up and tries the routine and nails it. First take. Like, perfect landing, perfect posture and shit. And you can tell, like, the mom, like, looks over at the daughter and is like, oh, this lady just fucking schooled you on how to do this shit. So, since the daughter still hasn't nailed it, and there's only one spot in the competition, we cut after that to everyone's gone home, and the only people left here are the daughter and the mom keeps making her do it over and over again. To the point that the girl's hands are like fucking blistered up and bleeding and shit. And this keeps going until the instructor lady comes in and like puts a stop to it. She's like, it's time to go home. This place is closing up, and she's turning off lights and shit, But before they leave, the mom does make her do it one more time. And this time she nails it, like on her feet and shit. And so it's like, okay, maybe not the best methods to bring out, the best in your daughter, but it might have worked, So they go back home, and that night we get a shot of the mom looking at herself in the mirror, and she has this giant surgery scar, like, on her left leg. So clearly this is one of those cases of, like, the mom did this when she was younger, and it was her dream, and then like something, she had a fall or something and fucked up her leg, and it ruined her career, and so now she's kind of pushing it on her daughter. Um, After that, we get a scene of the mom telling the daughter that she's in love with Turo, and that she's never felt like love for anybody before in front of her daughter, and the daughter's like starting to cry and shit, and she's like, I have to see where this will take me. Isn't that right, Tinja? And the girl, like, when the daughter turns back around, she like smiles, and she's like, yeah, that's right, So the daughter goes in her room and she's crying and shit. And she's crying onto the egg. This point is the size of a fucking boulder. It's giant, right? So she's crying on it. And as she does that, it starts to hatch. It starts to crack open. She gets scared, so she goes and hides in the closet. And as she's hiding, we see this giant fucking like bird creature hatch out of the egg. And the girl's like, oh my god, this is, and she's watching it, and eventually it like goes out of her point of view, so we can't see it anymore. But then we get the classic, like, she's looking out of the crack, and the fucking bird person like sticks its own face, and they come to eye contact, and there's a big jump scare and shit. The daughter screams, and the parents hear her. So they come upstairs to see what's going on. The bird freaks out and jumps out the fucking window and like shatters the window and shit. So when the parents come back up, they see the daughter standing there and the window broken, and they're like, what the fuck happened? And she just tells them that a bird came in, which apparently is something they deal with here, because that's happened before. That night, the daughter's trying to go to bed, and the bird creature comes back through the broken window. They had put like a cardboard or a piece of cardboard there, but it just like breaks its way through. And it comes back in, and it's like staring at the little girl, and it shows her its arm, and there's a piece of glass like stuck through its arm from where it bust out the window. So the girl like tentatively reaches out and like takes out the piece of glass, and the bird's like, and then the bird reaches out with its fucking talon hands and grabs the girl's hands and brings it up to its head to pet the bird on the head or whatever. She pets it, and then she like pulls her hand back, and it's all fucking slimy and shit, because this bird had literally just hatched a while ago, and she's like, oh, this is fucking gross, So we get a motherfucking bird bath. And she takes him into the bathroom, and she puts him in the bath, and she's like putting soap and shit on him and cleaning him up and stuff. And she gets him all clean and shit, takes him back to her room and puts him like underneath her bed. And they're going to sleep. But that night she has nightmares of the bird going next door to that bulldog outside and fucking killing it. And she's like, oh shit, but then she wakes up, and the bird person is on top of her, and she's like looking up at him, and the bird like reaches down and nudges her face with its beak, and when she looks over, she sees the next door neighbor's French bulldog there with its head fucking gone, and it's dead and shit. And she's like, oh, what the fuck? She throws up, because she's like, she wakes up to a dead, decapitated dog next to her. She throws up on the ground, and the bird jumps down and starts licking it up. And it's like, yeah, because this is how baby birds eat and shit. So I get, that's probably why he was bringing that dog over. But, is because he wanted that to be his food, but, she can't do that. So she throws up. One thing I will give this movie extra points for, the vomit throughout this movie is, like, very realistic, gross looking. Like, normally movies have some bad looking vomit, and it'll just be like slop or whatever, but this seemed like some pretty good fucking vomit. So bonus points. That's where that half point came from in 3.5, was for the vomit. So she throws up, and the bird goes down there and eats it, and he's like, god damn, this is gourmet shit right here. And she's like, this is fucking gross, I don't know if I like this. So she goes and wraps up the dog in a blanket and takes him outside and like buries him in the fucking ground. The next morning, the mom comes back from a weekend away with her boyfriend, and she walks in, and she gives the daughter a present. And the daughter, I don't remember even what was in the present. It doesn't really matter. But the son is like, "Oh, where's my present?" You know, and the mom's like, "Oh, I didn't get you anything," you know, and the son's like, "Oh, motherfucker." So he fucking walks out of the room all mad and shit, and then comes back into the room with the dog that somehow he found in the fucking 7 hours between when she buried it and now. And he like throws it down on the table, and he's like, "Fucking Tinja killed the dog. This is the neighbor's dog and shit." And the parents are like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Where did you get that?" They're like, an animal must have mauled it. They're like, "Get the fuck out of here. Go to your room," So he gets pissed and goes over and gives her the lightest shove I've ever seen in my life. But she like falls down and hits her head. And it's enough for the bird to sense her pain and like open up its fucking eye and be like, "Oh fuck, what the fuck did you just do?" So the kid's walking back to his room, but he has to pass by Tinja's room on the way there. And he sees like a move. She has a glass door, and he sees like some movement behind the door. So he goes in to investigate, and this is when he just pulls out this paper mask that I don't know when he fucking made it, why he fucking made it. I don't think we ever get a scene of him wearing that fucking mask, but here he is with this plain white paper mask that he's built. And he goes walking into the room, and oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I skipped by this. Well, I didn't skip by it, I just forgot about it. The morning after the dog died, the dad and the son had barged into her room, and the son was upset because she was in the bathroom all night or whatever, and then they heard her like walking outside, earlier, and they're like, "Yeah, what was going on?" And then the dad sees blood on the sheets, and he just assumes that the daughter had her first period, and that's why she was in the bathroom the whole time, and then she went outside to fucking, I don't know, throw away her underwear or something. But yeah, that happened before that. Also what happened before that too is that man, I'm sorry, I skipped. Yeah, she goes to the pet store to buy bird food, and when she's there, she meets up with the neighbor girl, who is like, "Oh, walk home with me." And as they're walking, the neighbor girl like makes her put up posters of her missing dog that ran away last night and shit. After that is when we get the scene that I just told you about. So he goes into the girl's room. And meanwhile, outside, Tinja's like having a seizure or something. She gets these weird She gets these weird moments where her brain will like connect with the bird's brain, and she like can see through the bird's vision and shit. And so he looks under her bed, and we see the bird like moving around, and then like its talon reaches out and like slices at his face, and it cuts the mask in half. And then it starts to crawl out towards the dude. But before it can get to him, Tinja like snaps out of her seizure, and I guess this stops the bird from murdering the brother. Because when he opens his eyes back up, the bird's fucking gone. The daughter goes into her. Also, by the way, I don't know how none of the parents saw or heard this happening. Because where they're sitting in the living room, literally looking down the hall, that's the door. Like, he just went in through that door, and that's where everything was happening. 15 feet down the hall from them. So, Tinja goes back in her room, and she's talking to the bird under the bed, and she's like, "You can't fucking do that, And the mom comes in and catches her, and she's like, "Who the fuck are you talking to?" And the daughter's like, "No one," So the mom goes and looks under the bed, and meanwhile, the daughter's like standing in front of her closet, And so when the mom looks under the bed, it's not there, but you're like, okay, he's in the closet. But then she goes and opens up the closet, but he's not, she doesn't see him in there either. So she's like, what the fuck? So she leaves. But then apparently the bird was in the closet. Like, I guess I missed when he revealed himself, but he is in there because then Tinja's talking to him and he's chilling out in the fucking closet. She tries to feed him some. Well, first she locks him in the closet. She like tapes the closet shut, but the bird's in there like trying to get out and shit. So eventually she gives up and she like opens it up and the bird's all sad looking and shit. So she tries to give him some bird food, but he won't eat it. So she knows what she is. So she just starts shoveling bird seed into her mouth and chewing it up and throws up onto the floor so he can eat the throw up. As he's eating it, the girl sees that the bird is growing like blonde hair and it's shedding some of its feathers and shit. So it's turning, almost more human as time goes on. There's a point that she also gives the bird the name of Allie, which is from the lullaby that they keep having to sing for the brother and shit. And they sing it a couple times throughout this movie. I think the girl had even sung it to the bird. But there's a girl named Allie in this lullaby, so she names the bird Allie. That night, when the girl falls asleep, we see the bird take one of her like dresses, and she goes walking down the hall, and the brother sees it, and it's like, what the fuck, And from that point on, he's like convinced that his sister is like a monster, because he saw her walking, down the hall. Allie goes into the mom's room, and she like holds the mom's hand, and when the mom wakes up, her hand's like covered in slime and shit, and she's like, what the fuck is this, So she gets up. Also, the mom's room, I don't know where the dad sleeps. The dad doesn't sleep with the mom. The mom gets up, and her room, she has all these like sheets hanging everywhere. And so she grabs like a knife, and she's like walking around and shit. And this is the little brother comes running in and like grabs her, and he's like, Tinch is a fucking monster. I saw her. But the mom's like, you just had a nightmare, So also, so that's the end of that night. The next day, the neighbor girl is walking home from the gymnast practice. I still don't know the name of that fucking thing. She's walking home from practice, and she's getting stalked by the bird lady, and the daughter can like sense this. They're driving in like their car, and the daughter can like see it happening, and she's telling the mom like they need to go back, but the mom just thinks she's nervous because the competition is tomorrow. The neighbor girl keeps running, and eventually she turns around, and we see Allie, who now is not even really a bird. It's more of a person. Like, she's full person, top face, and then her bottom face is like an exposed jaw and shit. And it jumps at her, fucking, we cut away. We go back home, and Tinja goes into her room and sees that the bird is gone, but it has left behind a piece of its beak. She sees that it shed its beak. So then this is when the cuck part starts happening, because that morning at breakfast, she tells the mom that she's going to come to the house with her and Taro or whatever, and stay there for a while. And I thought it was just like for a weekend or something, but I think it was legit, like, oh, we're going to go live with them now. And the daughter like looks at the dad, and the dad's like, your mom knows what she wants, And he's like trying not to cry and shit. Like, he clearly knows what's happening. But once again, he just doesn't have, enough self-respect to stick up to her. So they go to stay with Taro. And there's a fucking baby here. And I don't know if this is the mom's baby, because she keeps calling, she's like, oh, you want mommy, But at what, I don't know when she could have been gone long enough to have a secret baby, you know. So I think it was just Taro's baby that, but she's, acting as his mom. And they might have even said that at some point, but at this point, I was pretty far into not giving a fuck. Uh, so that night, when the girl's trying to sleep, there's a knock on the window, and the daughter sees Allie for the first time as like a person and with the jaw missing. So she lets her in, and they sleep in the same bed together. And that night, the daughter's there trying to sleep, and we hear the mom like in the other room just getting dicked down and shit. That morning they get the phone call about the neighbor girl getting fucked up. But she's still alive, and they go to visit her in the hospital, and we see that her hand is missing, and like her face is all scarred up and shit. Also, that's the last time that girl's ever in the movie. Like, we never see her again after that. I thought maybe she'd play a more important role, but never does. So Tinja goes back to the house and starts yelling at the bird lady, and she's like, "How the fuck could you do that?" And so then she raises her hand like she's gonna slap her, but then she starts slapping herself. And I was like, what the fuck is happening here? But later on in the movie, they show it more how, like, when something happens to the bird lady, the girl can feel it. When something happens to the girl, the bird lady can feel it. So I think it was like her making the bird hurt. But still, if you would have you would have got the same equal amount of pain from slapping the bird as you're getting. I don't know. Or maybe she's yelling at herself here. I don't know, because either the bird stops her eventually and like pulls her down into a hug and is like caressing her hair and shit. And they fall asleep like that, and then the next morning we see that Allie is like a full-on girl now. Like, she's got a full face and shit. You guys like my NASCAR mug? I don't watch NASCAR. I don't know where this fucking mug came from. But I use it. So the daughter goes to talk to Taro, the mom's boyfriend. And she's showing him like cartwheels, and she tries to show him like an aerial cartwheel, which is jumping up and doing a cartwheel in the air. But she keeps falling and shit. And the dude stops her, and he's like, don't be so hard on yourself. I know it's important for your mom, but you can't, beat yourself up all the time. And then he like tries to do a cartwheel, but falls to like make her feel better. And so, even though like the mom's a super shitty person, and to be fair, this dude knows, that she's married and has kids and stuff, so he's not great either. But it seems like he's not a bad guy, he seemed cool enough, and who knows, maybe he really did fall in love with this woman, and it's one of the, you can't help, who you fall in love with, As they're hanging out outside, they hear a cry through the house, and Tinja knows that it's Allie. Allie's like hungry and shit. So she goes back inside, and she eats some shit, and she's like throwing up. But she's throwing up when Taro is coming upstairs, and he hears her throwing up, so he thinks something's wrong with her. So he barges in and sees Allie like eating throw up and shit. And Allie like charges him, and he tries to close the door, but his hand gets like caught in between the fucking doors, and it busts and shit. And so he like breaks his hand, and it's bloody and shit, And I was like, oh man, he's the first guy that knows, what the fuck, that Tinja has this bird lady with him. But it turns out that he never saw Tinja in there. All he saw was Allie. So he just thought that was Tinja, like, upset about something, or what, he didn't realize that was another person. So he's just like, hey, we'll keep it between us, what happened, don't worry about it, or whatever. And when the mom comes home and she's like, what happened to your hand? He does say like, I missed with a hammer and hit it, So this is the point where I realized, they're just like living here now. Like, they don't plan on going back, I don't think. So it's time for the competition. And the mom and the daughter are leaving, and the daughter, as they're leaving, sees Allie like moving up at a window upstairs, and she tries to convince Taro and the baby to come with them, but they're like, no, we're gonna stay here, you know. So as she's at her competition and she's doing her routine, she starts going into her trance, and she can see Allie grabbing a hatchet and going into the baby's room, and she's gonna fucking kill the baby. So Tinja makes the executive decision to fall on purpose to land on her wrist and break it, so that the bird lady's wrist will also break and she'll have to drop the hatchet. And to her credit, she does this flawlessly. It works like a charm. She falls, breaks her wrist, and the bird lady breaks her wrist. The bird lady yells, and this is when Taro walks in and sees her in here, and he's like, what the fuck? And she goes and gets on the window and like jumps out and gets the fuck out of there. They go back to the boyfriend's house, and he comes out and he's like, do you know what your daughter tried to do? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? We were just at this competition. And he's like, what the fuck, you know? And he's like, never mind, fuck this. He's like, your daughter has some serious problems that I want nothing to do with. So get the fuck out of here. And he just straight up kicks them out of the house. And so the mom loads them into the car, and you can tell the mom is very angry. Keep in mind, this whole movie, she's like, this is the one person I've ever loved, you know? And so she gets into the car, and she pulls a Nicolas Cage color out of space move, where she just starts freaking out and smashing her face against the steering wheel, to the point that I'm pretty sure she broke her nose, because she just like, she looks like Andrew WK on that album cover, and it's just leaking blood. And then she looks at the daughter, and she's like, why can't you just at least let me be happy? And I was like, god damn, you know. So they go back home, and the dad is like, I'm so glad you guys are back. Like, he's just happy to have his family back. That night, the bird lady tries to come into the girl's window, but the girl is like, fuck you, you're not coming in here, get the fuck out of here. And she like pushes her out of the window and shit. And the girl like lands on the ground, and she's like, making bird noises and shit. Eventually, though, the bird lady does manage to sneak inside, and she managed to, like, I don't know, through the front door or something. But she just comes upstairs and goes in the closet where she's been hanging out. As she's hanging out in the closet, the mom comes in and finds her and is like, look at you, you're fucking hideous. Why are you in the closet, you know? The daughter's in the bathroom hearing all this happen. And she starts brushing her hair angrily, right? And she's like, you're fucking disgusting hair. Can't you try to keep up, be pretty or something? And she's brushing, so she eventually rips out like a piece of scalp from Allie's hair. And the bird lady turns around and looks at her and fucking like goes like an aggressive hug. But it's really like her trying to rip out her own hair. Like she's gonna try to fucking kill her. And the daughter intervenes. She comes out of the bathroom and stops Allie from killing the mom. And they both stand up simultaneously, like side by side. And the mom is like, what the fuck is going on, you know? So Tinja tells Allie to leave. And she's like, I don't want you. No one wants you and shit. And Allie's like, oh, you motherfucker. And she screams at them, and her face, like, splits in two. She looks like fucking Melina now from Mortal Kombat. So she goes and jumps out the window and leaves. Tinja tells the mom that that's the thing that's been, making everything bad, and she hatched it, and it's the thing that's caused all these problems, and, all this shit. And the mom goes over and hugs her, and, like, rubs her head, and she's like, it's okay. We'll take care of this. And then they go in the kitchen, and the mom just takes out a knife and then gives Tinja a knife, and she's like, now we hunt, It was almost like, at this point I was like, are they trying to make, like, this, like, the team? Like, I'm not rooting for the mom. Like, out of everybody I want the mom to fucking die. Like, that's all I care about right now. Um, Apparently it's not too hard to hunt this fucking thing because it just goes right back into the daughter's room. Uh, so they go up there and they find it, and it jumps onto the mom and it starts attacking the mom. But the mom gets her knife and stabs it in the leg, and it screams. But we also hear Tinja scream, and you turn around and we see Tinja's like stabbed in the leg too. That's like the first, well, not the first time, but we see like, oh, they're fucking connected. And then I was like, so if you kill one of them, wouldn't it kill both of them if they're connected in that way? Um, The mom has it cornered, and it's fucked up. It's all fucked up, like it's leaking blood from its leg and shit. And she's like, "I'm gonna fucking end this now." And she's going to stab it, but Tinja is having second thoughts, and the whole time she's like, "But I hatched it, I raised it and stuff." And she jumps in front, and she's like, "No." And the mom comes down and ends up stabbing Tinja straight in the fucking chest. And the mom's like, "What the?" She's like, "Fuck, I didn't mean to, do that or whatever." And so Tinja falls over like onto the bird lady, and like throws up blood into her mouth, and the bird is like, like eating it and shit. And then I guess that meal is the trick, because that turns Allie into like a full-fledged girl. Like her face goes completely human. Her eyes that have been gray and shit this whole time turn into like blue normal eyes. Yeah, and she stands up and she stares at the mom, and then the movie ends. There you go. That's it. That's the end of Hatching. This movie had a budget of 3.95 million euros. Is that it? I don't know. And then a box office of 478,585 US dollars. So I don't know how all that turns out money wise for them, but cool for them. Let me see real fast while I'm here if I can find some facts that are interesting. No, I cannot. There was nothing. Let's do best of, worst of for Hatching. My best of. What is gonna be my best of? A part of me wants to say the vomit, but that seems, weird. My best of is going to be you know what? My best of is going to be when Allie screams at them and her face splits into two. I shit on the effects earlier, and I stand by that because that bird didn't look good. But that was a cool effect with her face splitting open, and it looked cool as fuck. So that's my best of. Worst of? Man, who fucking knows? Probably the fact that the mom lived through this whole movie. Yeah. I don't know. How the bird looked, that's a word. Yeah, that bird looked terrible. I didn't like it. To be fair, I don't know how you make a big bird fucking slimy thing look good, but I don't think that was the way. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know what? My best of. Well, another best of. I won't change it. But I did like when the mom like is slamming her face into the steering wheel. It was very good. And then her fucking cold blooded line of "Why can't you let me be happy?" I was like, God damn. So there you go. So anyway, that's it. That's the end of Hatching. Next week, I don't know. Let's see if I even have a movie lined up. What is this one? Let me see what this one is. Alright, we can do this one, I guess. Next week we're gonna watch a movie called Incantation. It's also from 2022. Yeah. So we're gonna watch that. There you go. Um, well, that's it. There's nothing more really to talk about. Thanks for watching. Um, come back next week for Incantation. Go check out the gaming channel. Link in the description. Stuff's coming out there all the time. And yeah. All right, guys. See you later.